into it. Alrighty, so on the topic or on the agenda for today, drop in the chat where you're calling in from, your LinkedIn if you want to connect with everyone, and also how you're feeling going into this call. Like, why are you here? We all know that LinkedIn is an important part of life these days and personal branding and marketing, and that people in the social impact space tend to think about it differently. But I'd love to hear exactly why you guys joined the call today, just to make sure we can meet everyone's expectations. We'll jump into a very quick grounding exercise. You guys know I love these. It's just a very short breathing exercise because for many of us, we're jumping back to back on Zoom calls, and this work is a little bit different. You know, it's not a client call, it's not with your project team, it's not with your line manager, it's for you, and we want to focus a little bit differently. So we do a quick grounding exercise. We're going to jump into LinkedIn. I'll do a quick power lesson. I got a few slides. I promise it's not death by PowerPoint. And then we'll get into Q&A because that's actually really the most important part of the session to make sure that you guys are really getting all of your questions answered. And I'm just going to keep checking back to make sure that we have let everyone in from the waiting room. Yeah, cool. Okay, so for those of you who don't know me, I'm the founder of Kriitmaa Coaching and Consulting. I've been in the social impact space for 20 years now, started my career in vertical disease programs and global health. I have a PhD in epidemiology, did the UN and NGOs for well over a decade on the African continent in both development and humanitarian contexts. Eventually pivoted to strategy consulting, where I had an absolute beautiful 5 years in strategy consulting, working with CSR teams and in philanthropy and corporate philanthropy. And it was really a beautiful experience. But I pivoted after doing that for about 5 years because, like so many across our sector, I was very, very burnt out. And I wanted to create a new way of being for myself. I wanted to still do good. I wanted to still work in social impact, but I honestly wanted to make sure that my career was not my entire identity. And it had been for the first 20 years of my career. So I trained as a professional coach, and I still do that about 40 to 50% of the time. I do about 40% consulting contracts, and then I have speaking and board work, and I have what we call a portfolio career. And for those of you who follow me on LinkedIn, I speak about portfolio careers a lot, and I practice what I preach. Very much have multiple identities and multiple income streams, and that's essentially what a portfolio career is. Okay. So guys, let's get grounded. I am going to stop sharing my screen. I'm going to turn off my video just because when I'm doing a breathing exercise, if I'm looking at myself, I find it really hard to focus. So you guys do you. We're going to do 3 quick rounds of pranayama breathing. I'll walk you through it. It's not complicated. It's basically just in for 4, hold for 7, and then out for 8. So I want everyone to just get seated in a comfortable position. Maybe relax your shoulders a little bit. Get your feet firmly planted on the floor. And we're going to start with some breathing. I'm going to ask you to breathe in for a count of 4. And hold for a count of 7. And out for a count of 8. And in for a count of 4. Hold for a count of 7. And out for a count of 8. Last round, we're going to go in for a count of 4. Hold for a count of 7. And a nice deep cleansing 8. Okay, relax your shoulders, let your breath return to its natural cadence. Pop your video back on if you feel like it. And we're gonna jump into talking a little bit about LinkedIn today. Hot topic. Honestly, one that has garnered so much interest. So drop in here just very quickly. So Somia, sorry if I'm not pronouncing your name correctly. You're here to demystify LinkedIn and learn more about posting etiquette and strategies. Ooh, good word, etiquette. You know what? There is a LinkedIn etiquette, but as with all things etiquette, there's lots of different versions of it. So I am a career and leadership coach, and I've worked in this space for a few years now, and I coach a lot of people on how to use their LinkedIn according to standard norms. But you know what? If you line up 10 coaches, they might give you 10 different pieces of advice. So take everything with a grain of salt. We want you to use LinkedIn authentically. We want you to build your brand authentically. So I will give you tips and tricks, and actually quite a bit that's based on data and having learned and attended quite a few webinars put on by LinkedIn themselves. But as we know, things can change very, very quickly. So there's an etiquette, but there's also a little bit of a science and a little bit of art to it as well. Grace, you're saying that you'd love to learn how to utilize LinkedIn to generate leads and convert those into opportunities. Yeah, absolutely. Particularly if you're a consultant. Hey, Mary Jean, nice to see you. Nice to see familiar faces. Okay. Yeah, so we have quite a few people from Switzerland, a couple people from Geneva, New York. Hey, Mark. Okay, so let's jump into it. Some of you might hate LinkedIn, but honestly, ignoring it is not the solution. I can really truly tell you that after 20 years in this sector, social impact professionals have a particular type of disdain for LinkedIn. And I can say this because I worked in humanitarian work for years and I never touched the thing. And then eventually, when I pivoted from the UN and NGOs more to a strategy consulting firm and I was putting together bids, I had to use LinkedIn to connect with other consultants and build our bids and things like that. But you know what? I never used it for my personal brand. I was using it entirely to build up the brand of the boutique consulting firm that I worked for. And that's something we're going to talk about. The reality is, your career is way too important to stay invisible. And you might be thinking, okay, well, I use other tools and other platforms. Absolutely, that's fantastic. A lot of people don't realize that LinkedIn is a social media platform, but it is that much more. What LinkedIn is, it's basically giving you insurance for your career. You are hedging your bets on you as a personal brand and not just your CV. And for anyone who follows me on LinkedIn, I say this all the time, LinkedIn is the new CV. And in this volatile job market where employers are doing layoffs and, not just in the social impact space, but also in the private sector, building up a personal brand is your insurance policy that you can do something next, whether that's a full-time job or consulting or a portfolio career or pivoting. So it's not the question of whether you're on LinkedIn, it's whether you're using it strategically and with intention. And it does not have to be a heavy lift. I do not expect each of you to become LinkedIn influencers overnight, but what I do expect is that by the time you leave this session, you understand why it's important to use and a few key baseline things that you can do to make sure at least your profile is up to date and that you are using it in a way that benefits you in your career and not just your organization, for those of you that are still in full-time work, because I know a lot of you on this call are probably pivoting. But just quickly, because I'm a coach and I believe a lot in mindset, branding isn't selling yourself, it's showing your work. And you're probably thinking, I do not believe you, Kelsi. Yes, you go on LinkedIn, there's a ton of people selling stuff. Heck, I sell stuff. I have group programs and one-on-one programs and consulting services. I also sell on LinkedIn. This isn't to say there isn't any self-promotion, but there's a way to do self-promotion and sales in a way that is not icky, okay? So don't think of it as self-promotion. Think of it as visibility in service of impact, in service of your values. And for many of you who've worked in social impact, you got into this sector for a reason. If you are not able to communicate what you do and how you do it, how is an employer going to find you? And you're probably thinking, well, I'm applying to jobs. Great, fantastic. I can tell you right now, most of the jobs in social impact are actually coming from networking and connections and not just cold applications. I don't think that's going to come as a big surprise to anyone. Guys, just so you know, definitely drop questions and things in the chat, and very sporadically we'll take breaks and I'll scan them, okay? It's not branding, it's about authentic presence. I hesitated with this word because I actually love to push social impact professionals to think about their personal brand. Most people who work in nonprofits, international development, philanthropy, they're like, I don't have a personal brand. Everyone has a personal brand. It's whether or not you're refining it and you're communicating it, okay? And honestly, it's not about going viral. It's not about getting those 10K followers. It's not about, getting to 100K, whatever these is, or getting 30,000 impressions. It's about consistency and it's about showing up in a way that shows who you are authentically. So I need you to shift the frame that LinkedIn is a tool. It doesn't have to be a dirt burden, and you can really do it in a way that benefits you, again, without the ick, okay? Okay, we're gonna get into some of the nitty gritty now. We're gonna start off with profile, then we're going to then move into content. And then we're going to end with some of the nitty gritty, those questions where it's like times of day, when to post, how the hell does that algorithm work? Do I have to have a photo? All that stuff. So I'm covering really the basics. And then at the end, we'll have a Q&A. Okay, profile must-dos. These must sound so pedantic and obvious, but I swear there are so many people that don't do them. You need to have a photo up there, guys. Like, I have worked in organizations before where people have applied for jobs and shared their LinkedIn profile and they don't even have a photo. It has that like shadowy blue person. Put up a photo, okay? And I'm sorry, but it's gotta look like you today, okay? You might have a beautiful headshot that you used 10 years ago, and congrats, that's wonderful. I need it to look like you today, okay? I do not look like I did 10 years ago. 2 children, a business, all these things later, and that's okay. Aging is part of life. What I want it to be is a very authentic photo. The profile photo, I want you to be facing the screen. I want you to look natural. I don't want you to see like your friend that's like cropped out with the arm. You guys are probably giggling, but these are real things that I see all the time, okay? And before somebody asks, I'm gonna cut it off at the head, if that's expression. Yes, you can use AI to develop your headshots. In fact, a good friend of mine, Joel Levesque, he has a Substack all around AI. He tested out like 15 different AI generated headshot apps. Some were paid, some were free. And after playing around with them, he did get to some that really looked quite good. I would not waste a lot of money on those. In a pinch, you can absolutely use one, and they do work. You can tell that they're AI generated, and that's okay. We all use AI for a lot of things in life. But honestly, you also don't need a professional photographer. Get out at magic hour, 4 to 6 p.m. one afternoon, get your partner or friend to take a few photos of you. Don't make it a big thing. It doesn't have to be perfect, but it does need to look like you. Next up, your headline. Now, hands up or thumbs up or drop in the chat if your headline currently says your title and your organization. Be honest, guys. Jenny, I see you smirking there. Okay, Jenny, so you're a culprit here. That's you. Anyone else? No. Okay, Grace, you're saying no. Okay, good job. Guys, back in the day, that's what we did. In our tagline, we put like program manager saves the children. That's actually not what we want at all anymore, okay? Your headline needs to say more than your job title. In fact, I don't even need your job title in there. I tend to use a framework that is something along the lines of where have you been, where are you now, and where are you going? And something like a little bit of a spark, like how are you different? I have a client the other day, she speaks literally 6 languages and she works in international development. I was like, those 6 languages are a huge bet, a huge win for recruiters, for your network. You got to put that in there. Or if you have something about your personality that is like truly part of who you are. I've worked with a lot of different people. Some people put entrepreneur, mom of 3, obsessed with DEI. Give it some personality, okay? If somebody wants to know about you, they're going to go further in your profile. And even more so, guys, this is not your CV. We don't need regurgitated everything that's in your CV. These are not equal platforms and equal documents. If you're applying for a job, they will get access to your CV, okay? This is where you can let your personality come out a little bit more, okay? The about section. So the about section, I think if I recall correctly, has 2,600 characters. I believe the headline or the tagline used to allow 170. Use ChatGPT or Perplexity or whatever AI you're using to ask the question. They can give you the up-to-date from that date. But essentially, the about section, I also need it to tell a story. I need a narrative, okay? Where did you come from? Where are you now? Where are you going? And how do you help people? Why should somebody be reading your about section? This is where, if you're a consultant, you list your services, you list anything that gives you your value add, your UVP, your unique value proposition, okay? And I really want things that highlight outcomes, not tasks. And this is something that's similar. If any of you guys have done any like CV sessions or talked to recruiters lately, we want to see like managed a team of 200 plus individuals, managed 500 million in budgets across XX number of countries, optimized efficiency, installed new operating systems. Like really, we're looking for outcomes, not just tasks or outputs, okay? But more than anything, look at your profile and think, if someone looked at my profile, are they gonna get me? Now, I don't mean like your BFF or your partner or somebody who's known you for 20 years, but is an employer gonna understand the essence of you? Okay, that sounded a bit Tony Robbins-y, essence. What I mean is, are they gonna get like your vibes? I am somebody that is really transparent. I'm high energy. It's kind of hard to convey that, but I do put little things here and there in my profile to let people know that I'm also just not a robot. And what I mean by that is AI. I absolutely encourage you to use AI, whatever LLM you're using. My personal preference is ChatGPT. Um, I use ChatGPT a lot. I use it to help organize my thoughts, but I do not let it take over my voice. So, hot tip to do your profile, grab the latest version of your CV, maybe grab 3 to 5 job applications that you've done, or job descriptions or TORs, or maybe the current job that you're in, and drop into ChatGPT, drop in your LinkedIn and say, help me revamp my LinkedIn profile, or help do an evaluation of my LinkedIn profile. Where is it strong? Where is it not? Where can I add more keywords? And make sure you tell it what your goal is. Is your goal to increase your credibility? Is your goal to find a job? Is your goal to network? We need to know why we're on LinkedIn to begin with. For many of you, it is because of a pivot. And we want your LinkedIn profile to showcase those keywords that, for example, recruiters are going to go look for if they're looking to hire somebody in your thematic or your sector. Okay. So these are the must-dos. These are the nice to haves. Okay. So if we were working together one-on-one, I wouldn't insist on these right away, but eventually we would get there. Okay. So the basics are done. Now we want to layer in a little bit more credibility, professionalism, and a little bit more effort. Okay. Banner image. So sometimes people call like that the landscape one. Different options. Not everyone needs a banner that you've designed in Canva. If you look at my profile, it says like, I actually can't remember. It says my company name and my logo, and creating, amplify your story, upgrade your career, something along those lines. Not everyone needs a tagline like that. Maybe you put your organizational banner. Maybe that's important to you. Maybe you put a beautiful photo of, something that emanates to you. I have a client who lives in West Africa. She's very much into weaving. She posted a photo of baskets, and actually it's a conversation starter in a lot of the networking stuff that she does, because her profile is very, very West African. So what I'm saying here is, don't just leave it blank. It needs to have something. If it's blank, it just looks like an incomplete profile. Okay. Next, featured section with talks, reports, or articles. You're probably thinking, what the heck is that? So LinkedIn has this awesome function now where you can customize the buttons up top. Go to my LinkedIn and you'll see I have book a call. I also have my website. You can customize those buttons, no problem. But then down below, after your about section, is something called the featured section. And this is where you can put what we call a CTA, like a call to action. If you have a website, you can direct people there. If you have a published journal article in the Lancet or Nature, you want to let people know. It adds credibility. Maybe you have a webinar where you're a speaker and you punt that up there. It's in the featured section. Maybe there's a post that you did once that went super viral and you want people to see that discussion. You right click at the top right and you say put in featured section. It's actually really, really easy to do. And this also helps people see a little bit more of your essence, a little bit more of who you are. Helps them build a view and an idea of who you are beyond your job roles and the organizations you worked for. Okay. Recommendations. I've always been a little bit on the fence on this one, but I did talk to an executive recruiter lately who said that they do matter in terms of the algorithm, in terms of the way that recruiters get access to people when they're searching. So if you want to ask for recommendations, you can do that. You can actually send people on LinkedIn a request to please give me a recommendation. It's usually a bit tit for tat. If you're going to review someone, you can ask them to review you, or vice versa. I would say that if an employer is asking you for references, you don't send them here. You have a separate list of references. These recommendations are kind of just like a nice to have on LinkedIn. Do I think they're what's going to get you hired? Absolutely not. But it's another added layer of credibility. Consistency and clean design. So for example, in your profile section, if you put like 5 jobs and one job has 10 bullet points and 3 jobs have 1 bullet point, that's not consistent. Make it easy for people when they're scanning your profile, that it looks nice, the spacing is done right, you've edited it. I mean, these are just like real simple points here. But if you are going to use a banner, make it simple. It doesn't need to be fancy. Okay. And these aren't decoration. These are proof points of your integrity and the way you approach your work. Your LinkedIn profile shows so much about you, more than just the last jobs that you worked at. Okay. The 10K question. So I have a coach. Her name is Amanda Getz. I've been working with her. I've been part of her program for the last year. And she is the one who coined this topic. And it's called the 10K question. And it's super simple. In the next or 5 minutes, you meet someone. What would someone pay you $10,000 for tomorrow to do? Where you don't use ChatGPT, you don't use Google, but what could you legitimately speak for the next 10 minutes without using any platform? What would someone hire you for right now, tomorrow, for 10K? That right there is your first swim lane. And we're going to talk about swim lanes in a second. It's essentially our content strategy. That's your expertise. That's where you double down on. I want you to be known for something, not everything. And this is sometimes very hard for people to come up with, but the next slide is also going to clarify this. Essentially, I want you guys to start off by thinking about 3 swim lanes. Your presence doesn't have to be random. You don't have to post about something new every single time. Here's something to help give you a framework. Your expertise. That's your 10K framework. What can you speak about coherently, with conviction, with passion, with joy for 10 minutes? And or what would somebody pay you 10K for tomorrow? That's your expertise. That's one of your swim lanes. The second one is perspective. Something like values and lived experience. Now, ding, ding, ding. This is a very important point here. Let's stop here for a moment. This is where the personal comes in, and we need to be aware of boundaries. Everyone needs to make a decision around how much they are willing to share or not share. For anyone that has followed my journey on LinkedIn, 2 years ago, I shared absolutely nothing about my personality. I'm in my mid 40s. For the first 15 years of my career, I thought as a young woman working on the African continent, I had to show up like a robot because I was a blonde girl from the Northern Hemisphere. Nobody was going to take me seriously. I worked in global health. I didn't have my PhD yet. There was all these limiting beliefs and like self-doubt that was coming up. So I thought I had to be this like uber professional person. As I got older, I realized that I can be professional, but also let my personality come out. And now I choose to share certain stories and artifacts and stories from my life. So, for example, I have 2 children. Sometimes there are like really funny things that are happening. A couple of weeks ago, I tried to drop my daughter off at the wrong daycare. Like I posted about this, about like the mental load of women and back to school and how hard it is. You all need to make a decision how much you are willing to post, with the caveat that LinkedIn, the algorithm is changing. There's so much AI on there, and there is a lot more personal content on there now than ever before. It is still not an Instagram or a Facebook or any of those other things. It is still very professional, but sharing personal experiences absolutely helps to get your audience and your community to be more engaged with you. And then the last one, practice, is lessons, tips, or reflections from real work. So what I want you to do is to grab your CV, grab your LLM, dump in there and say, and grab your LinkedIn profile and say, I want to come up with 3 swim lanes based on my expertise in XYZ, and it will help. You can start workshopping that with you. Also, hot tip for those who use ChatGPT, if you download it on your phone, you can use the record button and then you can talk into your ChatGPT. It just goes so much faster and you can like ping back and forth versions. I really love that feature. I'll be like cooking dinner and like talking to my ChatGPT and multitasking. Okay. Now, the thing about the swim lanes, this might sound a little bit abstract. I'm going to give you my examples, okay? So my 3 swim lanes. The first one is social impact industry insights. I talk about things like what are the trends, what are the articles, the peer-reviewed journals, what is the recent literature and data coming out across our sector? I know that's vague. I define it as international development, humanitarian, nonprofit, and philanthropy, because those are the areas of focus in my work usually. So, for example, on Friday, I have a very consistent post where it's called What I Read This Week in Social Impact. And I highlight 3 or 4 articles that really impacted me. That's my first swim lane. My second swim lane is leadership, coaching methodologies, how to level up leadership in the social impact sector for organizations. I post industry trends around work and anything literally to do with like trying to professionalize the sector and make sure people are thriving in social impact. That's my second pillar. My third pillar is the one where a little bit more personal stuff comes in. I talk about women, work, and parenting, and being a working parent and how hard it is. So that gives you an idea of how I'm weaving in my 10K stuff, my expertise, what people actually pay me to do, with a little bit of personal stuff too. But a hot tip, all of those topics I am obsessed with. Like I love talking about leadership. I love talking about data. So make sure that your content strategy includes things that you actually want to talk about, because then putting together your content isn't going to feel like a slog. Okay. Okay. Content insights. Don't overthink it. Write like you talk. We can tell in 5 seconds if it, or I can anyways, if a post has been ChatGPT generated. And that's okay. If you're okay with that, that's fine. But I don't want to go onto LinkedIn and just read a whole bunch of LLM generated posts. What I want is to hear your authentic voice. So my recommendation is draft it 70 to 80% and then put it into ChatGPT to help you refine it, but tell ChatGPT not to change your voice, okay? You should also be setting up your ChatGPT with your settings. So for those who don't know how to do that, you can you can ask ChatGPT. What is that, like chicken or the egg? But really, there's a setting function in ChatGPT where you can put in notes around your voice. For example, me, I hate the word change maker. And like for the first 3 months I was using ChatGPT, kept using the word change maker. So one of my prompts in there is don't use the word change maker. It also says use a vulnerability, use first person, use examples from my life. I put tips in there to help it refine, also around verbs and certain words I like, etc. So make sure that you're customizing your ChatGPT so this also gets easier. Connect with honesty and imperfection. Nobody wants to go online and just see post after post after post about how great somebody is. That's great, but real life isn't like that. And this is not Instagram, okay? What we want is like real life reflections. You went to a conference and you know what? You had social anxiety. If you're comfortable sharing that, share that. That'll probably resonate with a lot of people. Try to think about what value you can provide. Share the lesson, not just the win. Okay, guys? So you were on a panel and it was amazing. It was so fantastic. But what did you learn over the course of that panel? Yes, self-promotion. You were on a panel. Fantastic. Great. What did you learn? Did you learn anything? Did you learn from the other panelists? Did you learn in the prep? Were you astonished because there was no diversity of voices in the room? Like, try to give it some meat. Okay. Consistency over volume. So at the end, we're definitely going to get into like how frequent to post and all those kinds of things. But I would really encourage you not to like lean into LinkedIn with this like post 5 times a week strategy if you're not going to be consistent. I would rather consistency over volume. And also, this is so silly, but if it feels obvious to you, it's probably useful to someone else. So all the stuff I'm telling you on LinkedIn now, my coach the other day was like, you know a lot about LinkedIn. You should share this information. And I said, yeah, but I'm not a LinkedIn expert. Like I provide LinkedIn guidance as part of overall coaching programs. And I've been on LinkedIn consistently for a year and a half and I'm growing authentically. I don't use ads or whatever. I was like, but I'm not an expert. And she was like, you are an expert because you've been doing it for a year and a half and you've leaned into this. So it felt very obvious to me. Like it felt obvious to me that like everything I know about LinkedIn, other people already know. But then I realized actually people don't actually know this. So there might be something that you talk about on a daily basis that maybe your LinkedIn community might be interested to learn about as well. Okay, here's the nitty gritty. This is where these like tiny little things, these like myths are going to come up. These are rules, just for the record. They're not everything. I cannot keep up with all the latest stuff on algorithms, but there are a few people that I follow who are deeply embedded with LinkedIn as like LinkedIn creators, and they post a lot. So for example, Rebecca, actually on LinkedIn, she's Becca. Becca Chambers is one of LinkedIn's top influencers. She's constantly invited to sessions at LinkedIn, like at their HQ. And when she goes there to these sessions, she comes back to the community and posts everything. She's like, okay, these are the updates to the algorithm. So find your people to follow. There are a few creators online who have developed full-blown products just on LinkedIn. So for example, Justin Welsh. Justin Welsh, I believe has like a, I don't know, a $99 course just on LinkedIn. I have bought some of these courses. I've taken some of them. I've done that very human thing where you buy a course, listen to the first video, and then like don't listen to the rest. I can honestly say with LinkedIn, it is trial and error and better done than perfect rather than investing in some really expensive course. Unless LinkedIn is like truly one of the most important pathways of your career right now, okay, then maybe you want to double down and get like some paid coaching or whatnot. But honestly, trial and error. So the nitty gritty. Best posting times. In general, it used to be Monday to Thursday. Very recently, the data has shown that it's Monday to Thursday and Sunday because apparently there are so few people posting on the weekend that you're more likely to get bumped into the algorithm, especially for people that aren't regularly in the algorithm. They see that you're there and you're going to get boosted up. The other thing is LinkedIn is still widely considered a professional platform. So you should be aiming for mornings or lunchtime when people are like taking a break from work. I know that's a bit redundant these days, given, people work remotely and, we all have different lifestyles and whatnot. But in general, A good practice is don't post after 5 p.m. People are generally not on LinkedIn after 5 p.m. Now, people are going to ask me about time zones. So post for the time zone of your target audience. So for me, I like to post around midday here in Europe. I'm based in Geneva, Switzerland, which is about 6 a.m. on the East Coast time. So I'm hitting the pre-breakfast, pre-school drop-off, before going to work crowd on the East Coast of the US. I'm hitting lunchtime around Europe, and then I'm hitting more like afternoon kind of tea in like East Africa, and then later in Australia. But my target market is mainly Europe and the US. That's who my clients are. That's my community. And so I've chosen that time zone. You need to figure out what's best for you. But I would highly encourage you to test. Test different posts and then go into your settings and see, where am I getting more impressions? Where am I getting more likes? Okay. The algorithm loves certain things. They like comments over likes. They like consistency over one-off posts. And in the order of hierarchy of events, it loves videos, and then it loves photos, and it's like, meh, you only have some text here. Now, this is a huge debate in the LinkedIn community because people are worried that essentially LinkedIn is becoming like an Instagram. Instagram, the whole premise was to have a visual. LinkedIn was never like this. So now what's happening is people don't really have a rationale to attach a visual. You know, if you look at my LinkedIn, sometimes I have carousels or I have quotes or whatnot. But now people are just posting like a selfie of themselves with their post. You're probably wondering, why the heck are people doing this? Because they want to get into the algorithm. If you have a visual there, it's more likely to get picked up. I don't love that. Clearly, I don't have a say in it. So what I'm doing is I'm really alternating. So going back to the 3 swim lanes strategy, my 3 swim lanes, I alternate every week at least one post across each swim lane. And I always have at least one carousel or one photo in a post every couple days. And just so you know, guys, when you do a repost of somebody else's post, that is not considered as a visual. Even though it comes up as like a link, that's not considered a visual in the algorithm. The other thing is, hot tip, if you're going to repost somebody's post, comment in their original post and then repost it without any text. Does anyone know why? Because if you repost it and put a message at the top, it becomes a new post. And what we want is to increase the impressions of the original author, because we want to give them credit for the work, not have you taking the next impressions from your network. We want to have it to be a conglomerate. Okay. I know it's hard to do, and I still do this sometimes too, where I post somebody else's and I put a little text at the top. But Becca Chambers, one of these LinkedIn gurus, is like on a soapbox on this. She's like, guys, you got to stop doing that. It penalizes your post and it doesn't help the author. Okay. Sheila, I see that you had a question in here. For featured articles, are these highlighted per job category or highlighted generally in the profile? Sheila, great question. They're just highlighted generally in the profile. So we'll go onto my LinkedIn in a moment and I'll show you exactly where it is, but it's essentially under your about section and above your job experience section. Okay. Couple more of the nitty gritty. What I want you to do is to post from you, not your org. And you know why? Because as I said at the beginning of this call, I want you to build your brand. I want you to hedge against sectoral fluctuations and potentially losing your job. So you build your brand, not just your organization's brand. I spent 5 years building a brand on LinkedIn for my former company. I do not regret it. The company was very successful. But when I left, I was really starting from scratch because I was really posting on behalf of their account, their profile, their brand. Okay. Reply to comments fast. I know this sounds so silly, like you're not just online all day waiting for things, but if you're going to post and somebody comments, it's within the first 60 minutes that it really will identify whether your post is going to go viral or not. Now, there's a couple weird things that happened this summer, and there's a lot of rhetoric online around why. I don't know if you guys have noticed this, but old posts are coming back into the algorithm a bit right now. I had never seen this before in my life, but I'm getting posts coming up that are from like 3 weeks and 4 weeks ago. A couple people have postulated that it's because there wasn't enough content over the summer months. I actually don't believe that this is the reason. And I've seen so many threads from like LinkedIn influencers and people who've analyzed like 300,000 profiles. We're not actually sure why, but we think LinkedIn is moving a little bit more towards a different model. So Instagram has always done this thing where depending on the content you consume, it gives you more of that content. LinkedIn was a little bit different. Depending on the content that you consume, it gives you content that you consume, but also that your network consumes. It was a networking based site. They are postulating now that LinkedIn is actually moving a little bit more towards an an Instagram model where it's what you look at is what you're going to get fed. I personally find that very disappointing because what I want is to see what my community is looking at as well. But stay tuned. There's a lot of like data being analyzed around this. Okay, a couple more do's. Plain language. Type, write like you would speak, okay? Don't all of a sudden become a robot. People want your authentic voice. Don't drop external links in the post unless there are more than 3. You guys are probably thinking, what the hell is this girl talking about? So here's the thing. LinkedIn doesn't love when you are actively pushing users to another platform. Obvious, duh, they want to keep people on LinkedIn. So if you, for example, when I post about my group coaching programs, I see link in the comments. When I say, oh, come to my career power hour, see registration link in the comments. I did this for years. Recently, Becca Chambers and a few others have come out and said, LinkedIn has now said that we are not penalizing people for putting the links in the core message. I don't believe it. I actually don't believe that that's the case. So I'm trialing right now and pivoting and doing a few different tests to see what works. Constantly doing micro tests. The one thing I do know is if it is more than 3 links, LinkedIn does like that because they think it's a resource post and they want you to be a resourceful person, okay? So what's happening is if you have maybe 1 link, maybe put it in the comments. If you have 3 or more, put it in the bulk of the text. LinkedIn will bump it into the algorithm because it thinks you're being helpful. You're not just doing self-promotion. So Chris, you mentioned yes on old posts. I have also noted posts recently from 2 to 3 weeks ago. Yeah, it's crazy. It really started across the month of July. And even up until today, a post popped up in my feed from 4 weeks ago. I just find this totally wild. So stay tuned. Hopefully we get a few more answers from LinkedIn in the coming months. And guys, if you go through the effort to do a post, don't ghost your own post. So when you post, somebody is basically going to comment on that. The quicker you can get back and comment on their posts, the more likely your post is going to get more impressions and get into the algorithm, okay? And again, I know we're not all chasing likes and getting into the algorithm, but the whole point of being on there is to network, and maybe somebody's going to see your profile or you're going to cross somebody else's, okay? So it's not just an ego-driven thing saying, oh, I got 10,000 impressions. There's a rationale here. So follow the basics, but please remember, real humans over an algorithm at any point. If you're posting authentically and you're following these basic rules, that's already a really great start. So what do we use LinkedIn for? We have the profile, we have the content, and then we have the networking. I actually have an entire session that I do just on networking. Some of you have actually been there. I think Jess, maybe you attended that one, the networking without the ick. I did it again a couple weeks ago with the DevX community. So networking is not schmoozing, it's being human, but you're online. And when you're on LinkedIn, all of these principles apply. Warm connections first over cold messages, okay? Comments, that is micro networking, but I don't want you to write great post. LinkedIn doesn't like that. They want something thoughtful and authentic. Great post. I really like the way you analyzed this data set from this journal. Thanks so much. Appreciate it. Just a little bit more content and depth, okay? For DMs, keep them short, personal, and contextual. I get dozens, sometimes hundreds of messages every week. I really try not to ghost people, but sometimes I just can't keep up. The ones that I respond to are the ones that have been written with true intention, okay? They have looked me up, they've said something personal about themselves, they've explained why they're reaching out, and their C2A, their call to action, or their request is super clear. Can I have 15 minutes with you to do XYZ? Can you connect me to ABC? I can say right away if I can help them or if I can't, but I know what they want from me. Do not send vague LinkedIn connection requests and say, hi, great to be in your network. Nobody wants to read those. They're clogging up inboxes, okay? For those that don't have LinkedIn Premium, you can only send so many in-mail credits every month. Like you might not be able to actually message people. People often ask me, is LinkedIn Premium worth it? If you are job hunting, or if you are a recruiter, or if you're someone like me that is doing lead gen and business development online, LinkedIn Premium is essential. And I think it's about 170 US dollars a year. So it's not a nothing investment. If you don't use it, it's not worth it. If you are using it, then it's worth it to you. What I love is I can see people that are looking at my profile. If you do not necessarily have premium, some people are hidden and you can't see, but there's other functions as well. And for me, it's personally the in-mail credits and then being able to message people you're not connected with. Another hot tip, guys, follow before you connect. Connections are for people you know or you've had a connect with. Following is for people that you don't know, but you want to stay engaged with them. So think about 3 circles. You have your peers, you have your thought leaders, and you have adjacent fields. That's how I think about who I'm targeting and who I'm networking with on LinkedIn. Now, if you scan this QR code, you can download, I have this aligned networking framework, which goes far more into networking because the session is really more about LinkedIn, but I wanted to just have one quick slide on there that talked about this. I swear, guys, this is the last slide, and then we're going to have more of a Q&A. So 4-week action plan, because a lot of you are probably like, oh my God, I don't even know where to start. Okay, this is so manageable. Week 1, and by week 1, today's the 17th, it's Wednesday, within 1 week. Refresh your profile. Photo, headline, about section, okay? That can take anywhere from 30 minutes to 5 hours, depending on how much you are a perfectionist. But as I said, use ChatGPT. Use whatever model you're using, okay? Week 2, comment on 3 posts with insight. That's not just liking, that's commenting on them. Week 3, share 1 resource with your opinion, okay? Week 4, share a piece of truly original content, a reflection, a carousel. And again, some of you might not be interested to do this, and I get that, but this is just trying to test this muscle of being like nervous to post original content. So there's a data point. It's called the 90-9-1 rule. First of all, how many people do you guys think are on LinkedIn? Don't ChatGPT it, don't Google it, just dump in the chat. How many people, how many users, registered users, do you actually think are on LinkedIn? Yesterday, I asked a cohort of people this question, and people guessed 1 million, 5 million. One person said 50 million. No one wants to guess? 20 million. Thanks, Jenny. 70 million. Thanks, Steph. You know how many registered users are on LinkedIn? 1 billion. Doesn't that blow your mind? It blows my mind. And guess how many of those people are doing things? Very few. 90% of LinkedIn are complete voyeurs. They have profiles and they are just scrolling, doing nothing. 9% of them are liking or commenting or maybe doing a little bit of reposting. 1% are posting original content, their own thoughts, their own ideas, their own reels, their own organograms or visuals. Guys, what an opportunity. 1% of a billion people are doing this. Imagine the opportunity to get your voice heard, okay? So by week 4 of your action plan, try to post 1 piece of original content. And I don't want you to spend hours and hours writing it. I want you to draft it, check it, go back and have a coffee or a walk, come back and post it, okay? A lot of LinkedIn content creators do say don't draft your posts and post your posts on the same day. They say draft them, go do something else and come back the next day and finalize them and post them because it gives you a little bit of headspace. And I do like that idea. I personally do batch content creation. So every Monday morning, my calendar is blocked and I do all my LinkedIn for the next 2 weeks. And I don't need to circle back to it for another couple weeks. Just a way to kind of have focus blocks. So stay consistent and the momentum is going to compound. Oh, I just realized my page numbers are off. Sorry about that, guys. Okay, quick start framework. I want you guys to drop into the chat. What is one thing you are going to do in the next hour, day, or week to jazz up your LinkedIn, to just get this muscle start working? Could be asking yourself the 10K question. It could be updating your headline. It could be commenting meaningfully. It could be contacting a friend to do a LinkedIn review of each other's profiles. It could be sending 2 network connection requests. It could be anything. So drop into the chat one of your commitments. Jenny, I like this. Updating my headline. You know what's funny, Jenny? People have more problems with their headline. You probably thought you were picking the easy route here. The headline's actually kind of tricky because it's art and science. So make sure you use AI to help you get creative a little bit. Steph, you're going to update your about section. Great. Mary Jean, you're going to do your photo. Okay. Chris, you're going to reduce your about section. Ooh, it's a really good point, guys. You can have 2,600 characters, but should you use all 2,600? I personally think you should use as many keywords as possible to increase the surface area of keyword searches by recruiters, but it's totally up to you. Grace, you are the first person to put the 3 swim lanes in there. Thank you. Okay, that's also a really hard one, okay? Get your swim lanes sorted out. Okay, guys, we have about 15 minutes left. Uzoma, you're going to update your headline. Love it. Lauren, you're going to comment on posts. How many posts? I'm a big fan of goals, but I like them to be very, very specific. So Lauren, drop in there. How many posts are you going to comment on? Somia, you're going to make your LinkedIn more consistent. Lauren, you're going to do 3. Perfect. Okay, guys, if you have other questions, drop them in the chat or put your hand up. You can come live. Jess, yours is currently optimized for recruiters, but now that you're in a new role, yeah, and Jess, this is such a good point. And those who weren't here at the beginning of the call, Jess just got a new role, which we're all very excited about. She's been with us on a lot of these calls these last few months. Jess, that's such a good point. Optimizing your profile for recruiters versus rebalancing it to be a little bit more human and less SEO focused for those target words is absolutely key. The other thing is, like, what are you aiming to do? Think about your intention on LinkedIn. Are you there to build your personal brand? Are you there to sell your services? Are you there to meet like-minded people? Are you there to learn how to be a thought leader? Figure that out and then optimize your profile as such. Stephanie, who should you accept as connection requests? Oh gosh, this is such a great idea. Um, I used to accept pretty much anybody. And what has happened is over the past year and a half, as I've gotten accepted on LinkedIn, I realized that I need to be way more discerning because the people who have crept into my DMs and now I had across my profile for a while were basically service providers, other coaches, and people trying to sell me services. People trying to say, like, I can up your business, I can help you get 100,000 leads in 2 days, like all these, like, what I call like the broy salesy messages. So, of course, I realized once I got serious about LinkedIn, I can't accept everyone. What I usually do is if there is a mutual connection, if the message was really full of intent, I could see that they researched, they were very clear on why they wanted to connect. For me, it's a little bit more of a gut feeling than it is like a like criteria that's very specific. Keep in mind there's a limit to how many connection requests you can have. I've only ever heard of 2 people that got to the limit. Craig, what's his name? The founder of Craigslist. I don't know if you guys follow him and like his philanthropy. He got to the max number. I don't know if it was like hundreds and hundreds of thousands or millions, I'm not quite sure. But he talks about how once you get there, you can't go back. You have to basically delete a connection to then add another one. I don't know if you guys are ever going to get to that level of community where you might have millions of people on there. For me, it's not about running out of space. It's around making sure that my community on LinkedIn is really high quality. I would rather be connecting with fewer people with aligned values across the social impact space and a few people in the private sector that I'm learning from. Because the downside of LinkedIn is that you can get trolled. So for those who follow me on LinkedIn, you may have seen this. I got trolled a couple weeks ago. I went through a whole cycle where I was like very upset and then I was very pissed. And then I was like, I'm going to talk to everyone about this because this is certainly going to happen to other people. I posted something like a vulnerable piece of information about my life and my family and how we had a really, really hard back to school. My daughter was starting daycare, my son was starting school. It was just like a really hard couple weeks. This person not only trolled me on my LinkedIn and said that, I must be a total idiot for this having happened. Obviously, I'm not very organized, blah, blah, blah. They took a photo of my profile, they took my post, and they posted it on Reddit on an entirely new thread that is specifically where people go and basically post people's information and say, look at these idiots on LinkedIn. So you can see how that could be kind of hurtful. So there are a lot of trolls on there. There are people that do this full time. They just want to bring people down for people who are spreading their voice and sharing their community. Just know that if this happens to you, it probably means that you're doing something right because you are like testing a few buttons out there. I got over it, but just know that LinkedIn has its pros, it has its cons, but that's also why you should be careful about connection requests as well. Just so you know, you can report on LinkedIn bullying and harassment. Their policies are pretty loosey-goosey. So this was not considered bullying harassment. Neither was it on Reddit's policy. It was considered free speech. So I'm happy I reported it. They couldn't do anything. It was just somebody being mean, but it wasn't somebody doing anything unlawful. So, Steph, I hope that helps you answer your question. And thanks, guys. Mary, your commitment is you're going to review your last post and try to understand why it wasn't appealing. Okay, Marie, what's interesting is if we try to unpack why one specific post didn't land, we sometimes just aren't going to be able to get answers. One thing you can do is you can look at your analytics. But it could have been that it was a crazy week on LinkedIn. It could have been that you didn't have a hook. You didn't catch people. Could have been that you didn't have a visual. The thing is, Marie, you're never going to know exactly why. You can hypothesize. You can drop it into ChatGPT. You can say, why do you think this didn't get any traction? But there are so many factors outside of your control. So rather than dissect too much and beat yourself up around past posts, what I would encourage you to do is to just do more. Progress over progress over perfection. That's what I meant to say. Progress over perfection. We want small, tiny wins and we want consistency, but try not to dwell too much on one particular thing, one particular post. Try not to spend hours on one post because, like you said, there are things that are just out of our control. Okay. Okay, guys, we have time for a few more questions. Elle, you just asked, does the person have to be in your network? No. So this is the thing. Second connections, third connections, you don't have to be connected to someone for them to comment on your post. That's the beauty of LinkedIn. Because if you had to be connected to comment on people's posts, like on Facebook, that would really limit who you can be connected with. So the beauty of LinkedIn is that you don't have to follow someone or be connected to comment, but then you are potentially more likely to get trolls. And that's the problem. Yeah. Mary Jean, you have a question about the idea of starting a newsletter, like a monthly newsletter. Any tips on this? I prefer posting once a month than posting every day. Yeah, okay, so the cadence of your posting is something that's super personal. It depends on your goals and why you're there. Consistency way more important than anything, so your audience knows. I absolutely love newsletters, and there are people that are total experts on this. Chenille, Chenille, I'm failing with her next name, is an absolute rock star. She posts about, it's called reverse engineered. She reverse engineers how people like Sahil Bloom and Justin Welch and all these incredible influencers have managed to build their newsletters. Amanda Getz, Goetz, she also has a mini course on building a newsletter. If you don't want to invest quite yet, I think the most basic thing to do is to just test out things like Substack. Substack's a great platform. I have not transitioned over there. I've managed to build over 1,000 people on my email list. So between LinkedIn and my email list, and the way that I built up those email addresses is on my website. I directed people from LinkedIn. So I'd say on LinkedIn, hey, you can download this resource on my website. That's called a lead magnet. And then that lead magnet gives me email addresses, and that's how I started my newsletter. So I don't use Substack personally, but a lot of people swear by it, and it's very affordable. You can cross-pollinate, but it really depends on what your purpose is. If you plan on monetizing the newsletter later, or if it's about brand building, there's a few different factors there. Mark, go ahead and pop off mute. Yeah.
Yeah, no, thanks. I thought it'd be easier to
Yeah,
speak my question than
totally.
write it.
Please.
But thanks so much for all this.
Yeah.
One question I had is that being in the context of applying for lots of different jobs and even in different sectors, how to balance, for example, keeping your profile general enough that appealing to different audiences versus, if I'm sending through an application today that I really want to prioritize,
Yeah.
like, is it worth for a couple of weeks making the profile more aligned with that role?
Oh, such a good question.
Anyways, yeah, that's all. Thanks.
Okay, this is one of those questions, Mark, where you might ask 10 career coaches, they'll say 10 different things, but most of the other social impact coaches in my network, we have a community of practice and we talk about these things a lot. And we are generally of the agreement that you should not be updating the key sections of your LinkedIn all that often. You should be updating it somewhat, that's like not a very good example of a specific term. Once in a while, maybe once a month or every few weeks, you can go in and adjust something because that actually tells LinkedIn and the algorithm that you're active, and that can help boost you in the algorithm. Whether you should update it for every specific job application, absolutely not. And here's the thing, if you have to update your LinkedIn to be so specific for each job you're applying for, your search strategy is probably not specific enough. There's enough general SEO and keywords that you can use for recruiters that should be able to put you into one general framing for a certain level, sector, or thematic of job. Does that make sense? So yes, spend time on your LinkedIn. Yes, lean into it, but I would not say that it needs to be tweaked every time you're applying for something different. Does that make sense? Yeah, I see you nodding. And Uzoma, I think your
Yep,
question was
thanks.
pretty similar. You said here, for those transitioning from the public international development sector, can a LinkedIn profile be too specific that it takes away chances to move to a new role? It's kind of what Mark just said. Like, how specific should you be? You want to think of LinkedIn as a funnel. So there's two ways. One is you apply for a job, and on your CV, it has your LinkedIn profile. People go to look for you. Or recruiters are scrolling LinkedIn by keyword. They find you, then they message you saying, we want you to apply for that job. Those are basically the two ways that people come across you on LinkedIn. The third is through their other networks, through your community, through comments, posts, branding, etc. The reality is, I believe LinkedIn should be wide enough to cast a net for all your potential employers, not too specific to kind of alienate anyone, but you don't want it to be so broad that no one knows what you do either. Okay? And I know that kind of sounds like a non-answer I just gave. Some of that's gut, and I would also use ChatGPT. Put into ChatGPT and say, I'm applying for roles in monitoring and evaluation, research, mid-career professionals in international development, but only in domestic US roles. Does my LinkedIn profile have enough keywords that are directed towards those types of applications? I would then drop in a couple of the terms of references or job descriptions and say, is this meeting the needs of these job descriptions? And it will give you feedback. Don't paste it word for word from AI, make it your own language. So customize to a degree, make it general to a degree. But if your search strategy is so broad that you think you have to update your LinkedIn, I would be looking at your search strategy rather than looking at your LinkedIn itself. Yeah. Okay, Somia, I'm thinking about transitioning sectors from global health to life sciences. Okay, could you give some tips on creating an authentic brand in a new sector without sounding like a fake? Oh, yeah, my dear. I mean, here's the thing about being authentic. Everybody's authenticity is different depending on who they are. What I want to say is just what I've said in the other slides today is just be yourself, speak like you. The fact that you just said you're transitioning, that to me is a post right there. Have you ever said to your community on LinkedIn, hey guys, I'm transitioning from global health to life sciences. I would love to connect with anyone who's done this transition. I'd love to buy you a coffee. That's a post right there. Another post could be, hey, I'm new to life sciences. These are the top 5 resources I've found. Can anyone think of another resource? Drop it in the comment. All of a sudden, you have people from life sciences dropping comments in there. Do you see what I mean? You don't need to pretend like you're an expert. You are transitioning, own that. Okay? That in itself is a type of post. Kristen asking about balancing private and public sector keywords. Fantastic resource by Mariela Vasquez. She has something called the USAID to Corporate Roadmap. If you go to my website, this first QR code under tools and guides, there's something that you can download that's called the comprehensive resources. On there is a link to Mariela Vasquez's USAID to Corporate Roadmap. It's such a cool resource, and she has tons of evidence and support there on the keywords to use if you are transitioning. She even has this really funky like translator where it's like, if you were a chief of party in Zimbabwe with MSI and you want to translate that into private sector speak, oh, that means VP of XYZ. It's a really cool tool. I would highly encourage you to download it. Okay, guys, I don't think I got to all your questions and comments, but we are out of time. Thank you so much for joining. These are ways that you can stay connected. I have tons of free resources on my website. We have these monthly calls, which you can register for online. If you have a topic that you want to hear in one of our next sessions, let me know. Drop me a DM on LinkedIn or on my website. A lot of you already have my email. Or if you want to participate in a paid coaching program, either one-on-one or in my group programs, you can scan this QR code and it goes to my calendar and you can book a free 20-minute call so we can chat about what your needs are. Okay, guys, have a wonderful afternoon. Enjoy the sunshine if you have any, and I hope to see many of you again next month. Okay, bye guys. Have a great day.